Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Talking Real Estate with Champions Real Estate Team here at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate Company. My name is Mark Wehner, the second team leader here at Champions Real Estate Team. Every Wednesday, we jump on and kind of talk about real estate, what's gone on in the last week. Joining me is Russ Williams with Williams Mortgage. So I'll kind of give you a rundown of what's going on in the market as far as number-wise goes and what we're seeing, and then we'll jump in with Russ and kind of touch on what's going on in the mortgage industry with rates and all that kind of fun stuff. So let's jump into our graphics that we usually use every week, just to keep it so everyone knows what's going on. It watches us week to week. So numbers wise, in the last 7 days, we've had 454 new listings go live, 235 new contracts written, so houses that went under contract or in pending status, and just under 400 happy new homeowners this last week. So a little lower on the sold homes this week, from previous weeks of the 400, 500s. I think that was right after Labor Day and that kind of stuff. Things kind of slowed down a little bit. And then contracts, about similar to what we had last week. New listings are similar. So I think, the market is still very strong for this time of year. I think the buyer pool is a little bit smaller than what it has been. Obviously, you can see we only had 235 new contracts written. So from a buyer's perspective, it's still a great time to get out there and look. So let's look at the 30,000 foot view of the entire Omaha and Lincoln MLS, and then breaking it down a little further. So we have 2,627 homes in the Omaha and Lincoln MLS, and then breaking that down in the Douglas Sarpy County for active listings. And I did take out the no-show status since we can't see those houses. They're on the MLS, but we can't go out and view them today. Those are houses typically getting ready to be on the market, getting painted and all that kind of fun stuff. And then we had 1,533 Douglas and Sarpy County, the Omaha metro kind of area for active listings, 673 existing homes for sale, and new construction at 860, up a little bit. Our existing homes is kind of hovering right around that 370 mark as it did last week. Was it May or was it March and March timeframe? We were down to like 200 existing homes. So we're seeing a lot more homes in the active market. Months of inventory, 1.5 months of inventory. Our average sold price hovering right around that 318, bumped up a little bit from 317 from last week. I was just looking, something popped up on a Facebook memory. I think it was like 2 years ago when we started doing this, and that was down to like 291 in 2 years. So, I mean, the average sold price has come up a decent chunk here going through that. But so yeah, as we touched on, the housing market is still very strong. I think, before we got on here, Russ and I were talking just kind of what we're seeing in a general, sense of it, that, with interest rates being a little bit higher, I think we're seeing people getting a little fearful. Oh my gosh, rates are high, and I think, my opinion, I think the price is kind of leveling out a little bit. I don't necessarily think we're going to see a drop in prices, and, those people that are kind of going to the sidelines waiting, well, I'm going to wait till next year, wait out the winter. We don't have a crystal ball, but in my mind, if rates are at the top of where they potentially could be, next spring, summer, if you decide to jump back in the market, if rates go down or up, inevitably, I think prices, you're going to have more competition typically in that time of year. So it's going to be tougher. You may pay a little bit more. We may see multiple offers scenarios coming back. We still are seeing multiple offers right now, just depending on price point, condition, and that sort of stuff. But I think it's still a great opportunity that if you don't have to buy right now, I think it's still a great time to buy. But if you're thinking, next spring, I would still keep looking, maybe not as, just keep your eye out of if something trips the trigger, go take a look at it, jump on it, and buy it at today's price rather than next spring's price. And if rates go down in the next year or two, you can refinance that from a 7.25%, to potentially, as if it goes lower. But if they go higher, which some people have talked about doing, you're still locked in at 7.25%, where the rates are at the time you purchase that house. So, I think it's still a great time, great opportunities out there as prices kind of have leveled off. And we touched on before from a real estate investment standpoint, now is a great time to get in the real estate investing game because there's less competition out there from, the home buyer that's buying it for their primary residence. That you can get out there. And if you see houses been on the market for 60, 90 days, there are some out there, you may be able to get a deal on a house potentially, depending on how motivated that seller is. So there's many different avenues that you can look at it, in the housing market. So let's jump in with Russ and kind of see what his thoughts are on what he's seeing in the mortgage industry, and we'll kind of take it from there. So, well, I guess what are you kind of seeing in rates and numbers you're seeing coming out?
Yeah, Mark, we are still seeing rates on the high side compared to certainly what they have been. We currently are sitting at about 20-year highs for rates, and that's a byproduct of the inflationary environment that we're in. We know the Fed is aggressively working to try to get inflation back down and under control. The reports that they look at when they make their decisions are backwards looking over the last 12 months. So it will take just a little bit of time before we see inflation numbers drop. And as a result, mortgage rates probably will stay in this general range for a little while longer before we see some improvement. We are seeing more and more lenders, including those that we work with, offering what we call temporary buy downs, which give the buyer a little bit lower rate for the first year or 2 years, and that makes the payment just a little bit more comfortable. But Mark, I can completely agree with you that if rates drop next year, that's likely going to pull more people from the sidelines, and that increase in demand among buyers to purchase properties is going to create more multiple offer situations and make it more difficult, perhaps, than what it is today to win that bid on a property. So you're encouraged to, if you're a buyer, to go ahead and try to find that property today at today's price, as opposed to whatever price it might be next year. And we can always refinance that down the road. We've talked in the past, Mark, marry the house and date the rate. Get the house that you want today. Just Redfin, in fact, came out, even though we are seeing inventory a little bit higher than it has been, Redfin had come out with a report that nationwide, they're seeing, what is the number here? It's 46% of sale transactions saw multiple offers on them. And so when you think about it, when you have multiple offers on one property, that typically doesn't result in the home selling below the listing price. In fact, nationally, homes are selling at 99.2% of list price, and the September Great Plains Regional Multiple Listing Service, existing homes were selling in this market, Omaha, Nebraska, Lincoln, at 99.5% of list price. So it's still a very strong market. It's a great time to sell a home. You're likely to get very close to list price if it's priced well and shows well. And it's a great time to buy a home because you have fewer competitors right now because interest rates are a little bit elevated. But Mark, marry the house, date the rate. We'll fix that next year or when rates next come down.
Yeah, and like you said, just the being creative on your financing. That if you're doing a 2-1 buy down, or the buy downs ask, or sellers crediting you some of that kind of upfront interest, to keep those payments lower, so that you can maybe, like we said, we don't have a crystal ball, but if rates go back down and within 5 years and you're in a 5-to-1 arm, you're kind of gambling a little bit, but you're getting that lower payment for 5 years. You're refinancing it within those 5 years, and you're going to lock in that lower interest, that lower payment throughout the process of it. So, but if you are thinking of selling a house, it is, making sure that you have an agent, especially here at Champions Real Estate Team, that's educated, that's in the market day in and day out and seeing what's going on, to make sure you price that house right. Because if you're pricing it on the comparable market analysis of homes that sold in August and July, you go back 2 months, 3 months, those prices probably aren't necessarily the most accurate reflection of what the market is doing today. So you need agents, especially here at Champions Real Estate Team, that are in the market day in and day out. So you know how to price that home effectively, because you don't want to carry that home for the next 60 days into the winter months. If the buyer pool slows down, you're going to get somebody who's going to come out there and go, oh, your house has been on for 60 days, and try to throw you, a price that may not be what you want for the house, even though that us as agents have maybe said, hey, that $450,000 house should be listed at $425 because of the run up that we've seen in the market. Let's price it, effectively, to get that house sold, so you don't have those carrying costs for 2 months, because you lose your buying opportunity, the cost of waiting those 2 months just to net a little bit more, which you can put that money into the market, gain that back before, so it's just making a wise business decision and taking the emotions out of it. So I think that's a lot of that we see with buying and selling, is emotions get involved. And our job as a real estate professional is to take those emotions out of it. And it's, you're buying and selling like a commodity. And that's what I think some people don't see that as that. They see it as the house I grew up in, or the house my family's getting into, or, you're selling your house and you find the best house, and now, but you got to sell this one first. And so you get emotional of what you want, and you need this to get out of it. And it's ultimately, as agents, is to coach you along the way of what's going to be best to net you the most amount of money and take that emotions out of it. I mean, we know there's emotions in play, and we have to work with those, which is, natural in that aspect of it. But it is our job is to take that, emotions out of it and help you make the best decision for you. So whether you're buying or selling, give us a holler. We are happy to help you. Sit down, do a Zoom call, meet in person, and look at houses, because it is still very active. Like I said, house I showed this last week, they had 5 offers before we even walked in the door, and we were looking at the house at 3:30 and showing started that morning. So, even in October here, we're still seeing some of those multiple offers, and, depending on what you want to get into the mix of it, and if we are doing multiple offers, we've done that, a ton of them this year, and how to position yourself to do that, so it's nothing new to us here at Champions Real Estate Team. So, but I don't know, Russ, you have anything else you wanted to touch on today?
This is good stuff.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Everyone have a happy and so trick or treat, right? So anyways, take care and thank you for listening. If you have any questions, give us a holler, 402-672-7670 or 290-8936 to meet to get in touch with Russ. And we're happy to help you. And like, comment, subscribe on our LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. I think we're out there on just about everything. So take care and